today, but have since come home because it is like 8:30 p.m. somewhere in that time. In any case, have some cool swords here. Those of you who've been following me probably have seen most of these already, but this is a fun one I like to show. This one is made of S5 shock steel. It is basically a transitional sword, and what I mean by that is that once upon a time in Japan, like through about 700 AD, they were basically using Tang Dynasty style swords. That is, swords that looked like Tang swords. And so I'll show you one example here. This is also from Cloudhammer, but this would be a sample of a Tang Dynasty style sword with sort of this rectangular hilt. I'm going to put this down for a second. This rectangular hilt, and then some Tang Dynasty style swords had this kind of tip, and other ones had kind of a wedge tip. I don't have any examples of that here, though we do have some in the shop. But in any case, so Japan, up until about 700 AD, was copying models from China, also bringing in models from China. And then, starting around 700 AD, they were finding that the Japanese, the kind of swords they were using, didn't quite fit the kind of warfare that was going on in Japan at the time. And so this sort of sword was one of the first kinds that you would see, though maybe not this long. Cloudhammer made this 90 centimeters long. They only made 3 of these guys, and so I have one for the time being. But check out that tip. And so the tip is rounded like a Chinese-style straight sword. But then when you come up this way, you can see that it has a triangle bohie, and it's actually, the spine is thinned. So this side is not sharp, though it could be sharpened. It could be the so-called false edge. I don't know why they call it false edge in European martial arts. But anyway, so you can see here that this is still a Japanese sword, and once again a transitional type, the sort of sword that you would have seen around 700 AD as they're starting to adapt to Chinese swords. This one is cool. It has an ebony saya, ebony scabbard, and I never know which way to put it back into its sheath. Check again this triangle bohie right there, and just how that bohie has that really triangular termination, and how it goes and transitions into that smooth spine there. I think it's a really cool thing there. Let's see, who is commenting here? Richmond represent. I'll have to come by the shop. Heck yeah, come visit us sometime. Is it heavy? No, I mean mildly. I mean we have, yeah. One of the things about kogurasu style, and that's what this style is, and usually the kogurasu is curved, is that it's so thin here that it's very lightweight. It's actually pretty lightweight. I feel like I can do some pretty interesting things here with this sword. I'm actually using I would a Chinese straight sword as opposed to a Japanese sword. Let's see. Hey John says Voltage Blue. Any 31 Nagasa Katana on hand available for sale? Yes. As a matter of fact, we do. 31 with a relatively shallow sortie. Yeah, we actually have. Let me put this guy away. I don't have it here. It's at the shop. But we just got a Cloudhammer 31 shallow sortie. It is on the wide side. This is actually a deeper sortie at 31 and a half. But we do have a 35 millimeter wide blade. And so this one is the 34 millimeter with a deep curvature. But that one is a 35 millimeter wide blade. It is a heavy cutter. And so we do have one. If you go to cloudhammerforge.com, it is a little bit on the pricey side. This one's actually already been sold to a German client of ours. But this was a 31 and a half. I think that might be the only 37 and a half or 31 and a half that we have at the present moment. But I'd have to think about that for a second. If I were in shop, I could double check that and see. Are you guys able to ship to Canada? Yes, we can. We do ship to Canada. You do get hit with certain fees like duties and stuff. But I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and to go to the Ontario area is about $20-some, and to the Vancouver area is $3, and they tack on various custom clearance fees and duties. Looks like Japanese level quality, literally. I wouldn't say that at Stoic Apprentice. I mean, Japanese quality, the Japanese really, they take it a step above. I would say the closest thing to a Japanese quality sword would be a Motohara, which is a Korean-made sword, and everything about a Motohara sword is very perfect. I mean, it's basically you shake a sword and it's like there's no rattle. You hold it up, I say hold it upside down, it doesn't come out, but it did, and it just releases with a little bit of pressure. That's kind of what you're looking for in a Japanese sword. And with Chinese swords, it's Chinese-made Japanese swords. It's very hit or miss. So. I would say that Cloudhammer is not the best with fit and finish. They're really good with blades. The blades, second to none. But fit and finish, I would say they are middling to okay. They're middling to good, but they're not great. we have some people we work with that have excellent fit and finish. Cloud hammer can be very hit or miss. We'll take a look on the site. Thanks, Sean. Awesome. Yeah, voltage blue. That's on cloudhammerforge.com for the 31. It's called. I think it's called the. It has a shishi on it, like the lion dog. Let's see. Bell's hip. How much are you selling the straight sword for? That one is $12.50. It's a very expensive sword because it is made of S5 shock steel and it is long and 90 centimeters. Very unique. Okay, let me see. Can you give us a little more info on the Phoenix Arm Sun and Moon katanas? How's the Ito quality of the blade, durability, etc.? I would say the Sun Moon katana is more of a display piece. That is to say, it is functional. You could use it. I don't have it here. It's at the shop. You could use it, but because of the polish and just the various sides of it, it's more of an art sword. It's something that you would put on your wall and show off to your friends. And you could cut with it. You could use it if you needed to. But anytime you cut anything that's hard, you risk scratching that polish, and it has a really pretty polish to it. But you could use it. It's T10 clay tempered steel. It's as durable as any other T10 clay tempered sword out there. I would say the fit, like the wrap, is not as good as some of the other ones that we carry. There is a little bit of budge, and what I mean by that, let me see if I can show an example here. Okay. So this is our budget line. This is Heaven and Earth, our budget line. And what you'll see is that the wrap, it budges quite a bit. There's quite a bit of play in it. And so if you have a really tight grip when you're cutting, you really risk just moving the diamonds and moving the wrap. Meanwhile, let me see if I can find a good cloud hammer. This is a cloud hammer sword. This is the Scarlet Tide, and this one, it barely budges. Cloud hammer, if they do one thing really well with the wrap, is that it's very, very tight no matter what. The diamonds are not always very evenly shaped. Now let's contrast that to, this is Moritaka, one of our premium brands, and this is leather, so you really can't, it's not exactly the same, but same thing. You see very little budge in it, but the diamonds are very even and the transitions are very good. One of the things that Cloud Hammer can F up with is the transitions. And I think what happened, I haven't been given the entire story, but there was this issue where they had fixed it, but then it got bad again. And I think some of their people had quit or something like that. But this is one that they wrap for me, and you can see that the transition isn't good. And some people will complain about that. They'll say, "Oh, the transition is going to bite into your hand." And personally, I think if you're complaining about like the metal pieces biting into your hand, you don't have very tough hands, and you shouldn't be. I shouldn't say you shouldn't be practicing, but the more you practice, the tougher your hands are going to get anyway. So I never had an issue with it myself. But that's one place where Cloud Hammer can screw up is the transitions. They are getting better again, but for a while there, they were bleh, and they got good, and then they got kind of hit or miss, and now they're getting good again. So yeah. So that is a very long-winded answer. The Sun Katana has better tightness than the Heaven and Earth, but not as good as Cloud Hammer or Moritaka. Okay, let me go on and answer the next question. Tengu Voltage Blue Okatana is maybe what you look for. 31 Nagasa. Oh, thanks. Tengu 191 in the house. We just got his order in. Hey, Adam says, I just started sword collecting, and my first sword in the collection was an Oni-themed Damascus steel katana that you guys sell. And I got to say, thanks for selling these fascinating swords. Sure. Yeah, Oni Damascus is a fun sword. It's once again, it's what we consider to be a budget sword, but it functions well. We've had a client who actually cut through 5 stalks of bamboo with it, like in one swipe. I was like, wow. So it's a decent sword. It's a budget sword, but it's still decent for what you get. Let's see. It is definitely at budget level. Awesome, thanks, man. Would you recommend something to me with a max budget of $1,000? Looking for functional piece, balancing, fit, finish. I would say go for one of the Dragon Kings. Like go to our website. We sell Dragon King under MSRP, but Dragon King Sea Wave, the Dragon King Takyu, those are the $850 range, and those are excellent swords, excellent fit and finish, and great durability. If you want just a really tough blade with good fit and finish, but it doesn't have to be awesome, then Cloud Hammer has amazing blades, and we have some. Actually, the Scarlet Tide here, this is a $925 sword. It has a really gorgeous blade. This is a what do you call it? A W2 cable steel sword, and you can see that it has a really pretty toji hamon to it, and it has an okisaki, so you can see the kisaki is pretty long. And this is a 28-inch nagasa, so a little bit longer longer side, but not a super long sword. It's also a little narrower, so it's a very lightweight sword. It has all copper fittings. And everything about the sword, when I say that Cloud Hammer can mess up with the transitions, it's not messed up on this one. On the Scarlet Tide, it is really well done. It's not quite in the my camera. It looks a little orange. I think that my camera basically is compensating for my bad complexion by turning this orange, but it's more of a sort of a bright red more than orange. Let's see. So yeah, this is a good sword. And if you're looking for something functional, we say don't go for a hamon. A hamon, you don't need a hamon to for your function. Hamon basically degrades the durability of a blade. It makes the edge harder, and so it makes it easier to cut through certain things and retain its edge. But it's not good for bend resistance and durability in all. Okay, what could be a fair price area to start my collection? Stoic Apprentice, it really depends on what you want to do. And do you want a highly functional sword that you're going to practice with, or are you going to get a sword that's there more for aesthetics, but you can cut with it? And that'll help me answer your question. Dragon King or Skyjiro? Yeah, Skyjiro is a great sword. I'd say Dragon King is just as good for practitioners. I mean, I know Tengun 190 swears by Skyjiro. I would say Dragon King, and quite ironically, Tengun 190 is the one who got us into Dragon Kings. I think Dragon King is excellent for the value. I would actually put Dragon King ahead of Skyjiro. I've only handled a handful of Skyjiro, so maybe that's just me. Let's see. How can I buy that one? The orange one. It's bright red, not orange, but it's like cloudhammerforge.com. That one's at cloudhammerforge.com. That is an expensive sword at $925. But you can get similar ones if your budget is lower. We do have similar swords. Go to our regular website, rvakatana.com, and look for Phoenix Arms. And we have a lot of them with really pretty hamon. And if I were at the shop, I could show that to you, but I am not at the shop. Actually, while we're here, let me show you a really cool sword that we got in. This one is kind of my new pride and joy, the thing I love the most. This one is a water dragon tachi, and by I say water dragon, the fittings are based on the Suriryuken, which is a sword in the Tokyo National Museum. So the fittings are based on that. They're pretty intricate. I think they're pretty well done. And this is a full rayskin saya, and you can see it has like the large nodes in some places. Large nodes that were sanded down, which kind of made me sad. But anyway, here, check out the pattern. I don't know how well you can see it in my camera, but the pattern in this one, this is a non-traditional manner. This is actually made of meteorite. So 30% of it is meteorite and the rest is regular steel. Let's see. Yeah. So this is a gorgeous, in my opinion, quite a gorgeous sword. And I am a huge fan of this one. Here's another one. Here's another one that I like a lot. This is the Phoenix. This is the idea of Phoenix Arms. They made this sword, and this one is called the Phoenix from Phoenix Arms. And it's really cool fittings. This is the Kojirigane. Check out, instead of a semigane, they use this copper engraving here, brass I should say. And then look at the detail on the hanger, the ashi. Really cool detail. And then everything about this is just beautifully done. The Minuki is this giant thing. It's a rayskin handle. Hey, Insanity Pepper. Senpai wa. You can check out here. The camera does not do this blade justice. This is a gorgeous blade. And okay, I was freaking out because I thought it was a rust spot, but it was actually just a piece of the inside of the scabbard. This is a really pretty blade, even though the camera does not do it justice. You can see better pictures on RVAKatana.com that this one is a really pretty sword. This one, the Phoenix, is paired with the dragon in mythology. And we also have another tachi over here, which is the Phoenix, or sorry, the dragon. So you can see here, the semigane is this piece of brass. Look at the detail on this tsuba. And there on the hanger, the ashi. And the semigane is, instead of a semigane, it does have that dragon carving. It has that same really cool blade. Hey, it is Scott Takahashi in the house. Yeah, Scott's laughing. Howdy, senpai. Let's see. Yeah, this is one of my favorite ones. It's nice to see more tachi reproductions. I'm a whore for tachi. I just love my tachi. And I'm trying to get like more authentic touchy pieces. I'm gonna turn this around so you can see my wall of touchy over here. I should say my rack of touchy. So it kind of this that straight sword I was showing earlier, S5 is a nice way to split up the katana and the tachi, sort of half and half there. So this is another interesting one here at the bottom of the rack. I like to show this one off. This is an Osaraku style wakizashi, and it has that really cool, wicked looking shape. You can see the yokote is the stabbing line. The stabbing tip starts here. And this is a very sharp sword. I always like to show off this sword in action. There is video of us cutting tatami with it, but here's a piece of paper. Oops. That kind of ripped, but you get the idea. It's a pretty sharp. This is a pretty sharp sword. And Osaraku Wakazashi, very mean looking guy there. Let's see. It's nice to see. Let's see. I also love how you guys sell an extremely wide variety of swords. I think it's really cool. Yeah, Adam, we take pride in that because, you know, we're like, whatever sword makes you happy, that's what we want to put in your hand. So if it's a $35 anime sword made of wood, yeah, that makes you happy by all means. Or if you want an antique sword, we do have a small selection of antiques, which by the way are 10% off this weekend. And then we have practitioner grade swords as well. So we think we have something for everyone. Well, almost everyone. There are definitely people who are high up who don't want anything we want. And other people who just don't have any money who can't even afford a $35 sword. But for the most part, we feel like we have a little bit of everything for everyone. Let's see. Tanku says, I need to introduce you to a Koryu school that focuses on Tachi. Yeah, heck yeah. Hey guys, it's Wayne Young. I really appreciate you guys. It was a great honor hanging out with you all today. So Cass FPV, he came by our shop today. He bought like the Cloudhammer giant Nodachi, and he came to pick it up today. He drove in from Maryland, and he also picked up the Yamato, the Cloudhammer huge Yamato as well. So thanks for coming in, Wayne. Always great to have. It was great to have you there. Let's see. Thanks for coming and unboxing with us. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. If I never use a sword, can I leave the thick shipping oil? So the thing is that thick shipping oil, it'll start to dry up, especially if you have like a warm, like during the winter, if you have forced hot air, that oil will start to gunk up and be less effective. So you would probably want to wipe it down and put on a new layer of oil. Let's see. Did you ever reach out to Paul Martin? I didn't. I thought you were going to introduce me, John. So Tengu 190, he was saying I should reach out to Paul Martin. I was like, you introduced me since you know him. Paul Martin gave Tengu 190 his kendo gear. So anyway, yeah, he'll get on it. Some of the other stuff we carry, we're actually getting. This is a longsword, Cloudhammer's SX105V. We're getting 10 of these in the next, probably the next month. And we are getting 10 in S5 shock steel as well. But we loaned the SX105V to the Queen's Gambit competition in Charlotte, and several people competed with it. The person who won second place in cutting longsword used our sword, and a lot of people were raving about how great it was. So hopefully we'll be able to sell them. Otherwise, I'll be stuck with a large debt, which I'm not too fond of. So this is a Cloudhammer longsword of SX105V. And then here's an arming sword. However, they don't have any in the production queue as far as I know with the arming sword. But it's a one-handed sword. We actually loaned this one too to the Queen's Gambit competition. And once again, the person who borrowed it, the person who won first place actually borrowed this sword for cutting. So S5 shock steel. I think it's pretty sharp. I don't know. I haven't actually tested it, but my understanding is that they put an extra edge on it. So yeah, that's pretty sharp. Yeah, that's sharp. And I'm making a mess in the guest bedroom. My wife will not be happy about that. So anyway, wow, those swords are scary. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. That looks like Kugari sword. Sorry, my eyes are really bad and I can't see that very well. Anyway, arming sword and long sword. And then we are going to be getting one of these. We actually have a new SX105V hand and a half sword, but this is the S5 hand and a half sword. We are getting one of these. It's a replacement for this one, which actually had a major issue with it, so it's become mine. But this is the hand and a half. And we do have another budget hand and a half right now from Cloudhammer made of SX105V. Adam says, what's a blade material that would be considered functional, or are they pretty much the same? Oh, there's a wide variety with steels. And so the bare minimum you want for a functional sword is 1045 steel. That's sort of the bare minimum to hold an edge. And then when you go up to 1060 steel, you're getting better edge retention and decent durability. And then at 1095, you get really excellent edge retention, but then it's not as tough. And so those are your basic steels. And you can get into spring steels. Like if you're a beginning cutter, I usually recommend a spring steel like 9260, 5160. We have 51 CRV4, which is a German spring steel, and also SUP 12, which is a Japanese spring steel. And both of those are very excellent for beginning cutters because you're not going to F up your sword as easily compared to certain other types of swords. Steels, I should say. This is actually here, if you've been watching any of the videos I've been posting, this is a Ming Dynasty style sword. This is probably my new favorite. It's not a super big sword, but I really like the Ming Dynasty style wrap. What makes this sword super cool is that it's called Horsetooth. And so if you look along the edge, it looks like it has a hamon, but it's not actually a hamon. What it is they take a hard steel and they wedge it and laminate it to crisscrossing patterns of folded steel. So I made this one thing as a demonstration for this kind of lamination here. So it's basically looks like this would be the hard edge steel and this would be the folded steel body. You can see it kind of does, that's how they do it. That type of lamination. I think that's a pretty cool look to it with the Horsetooth saber. Let's see, 5160 or 1060 if you want durability, S5 and S7 for even more durability, but they come at a higher cost. Yeah, I would say for, S5 and S7 are kind of overkill. Unless you plan on really abusing the crap out of your sword, then S5 to S7 are both kind of overkill. They're the sort of sword you want in the zombie apocalypse that you don't want your sword to break. Or if you plan on bashing sword on sword, or if you're just going to go out into the woods and just beat the smack out of your sword, S5, S7. If you're looking for a good cutting sword, the best ones we have are ASAB 88, which is a type of, it's actually not a powder steel, but it's based on D2, which is a great knife steel because of its hardness and edge retention. But it's like D2 with a modification to make it more durable at longer lengths. So this is actually an ASAB 88 blade here. This is a Cloudhammer zombie killer, and I actually, this blade had some like this corrosion to it, so I can't sell it, and so I'm going to replace. He's sending me a replacement blade, and then I plan on using this as my cutter. Kind of excited. We've cut like bamboo with this. It has such a hard edge. It's really cool. Let's see. What steels are Damascus katanas made from these days? Insanity, that really depends. I mean, people are using all kinds of blends for the Damascus. So yeah, it's really hard. I mean, there are a lot of different varieties. The best cutting sword you had is my Moritaka L6. So this is true. Tengu 190 has Moritaka L6 Okatana. It's 31.5 inches koshizori. It is L6. So one of the things with L6 is that there is risks of chip edge damage on hard targets like bamboo. But on mats, that thing just went through mats like they weren't there. It was one of the most fun swords to cut with. It was like easy mode. So Tengu's, Moritaka L6. And we're supposed to get more, but we're like a year out since the order and it hasn't come yet. What's the difference between S5 and S7? S5 has more impact resistance. That is to say, S7 I think takes 168 joules to break, versus S5 takes 186 joules. So it's about a 10% improvement there. Actually, not even 10%, about 5% improvement in terms of durability. No, 10% improvement on durability between S7 and S5, depending on heat treatment. That's the caveat. In comparison, the T10 clay tempered blade takes about 10 to 12 joules to break. So you're talking about a sword that is 15 times stronger than T10, which is why I say it's overkill. For the most part, you don't need it. Like I have yet to break a T10 sword, though I haven't quite abused it like the way, say, Matt Jensen has. But T10s are usually sufficient. So when you get to S5, it's kind of like that's the sword you're gonna be beating the smack out of things with. Let's see. That L6 fun was to cut. Yeah, Scott, that was we both had fun cutting with that sword. It was unbelievable how easy it was to cut with that sword. So I can't wait to get it. Actually, something cool I need to show you guys. I just got a shipment from Namikawa Heibei, and we got choji oil, which is cool, like real choji oil. But I also got the sageo, like the tortoise shell sageo, and I got another one, a braided sageo. So I'm gonna put these on some of my swords. Like these are authentic Japanese silk sageo. So we now have a wholesale account with Namikawa Heibei. So if you're looking for things, let us know. Whew. Ooh, anything you guys want to see, or anything I'm happy to show you? I pretty much show the same things. Not a lot has changed in this room. Oh, here's one thing that's new. Not new, but this is one of the things that's new in the room. This is a Russian shashka. This one was bought by Kingfisher here on YouTube, and if you ever want to see an amazing cutter, Kingfisher is the person to watch. He is just unbelievably good. But a shashka, it reminds me a little bit of a Kogarasa style blade. You can see it, ooh, almost lost control of it there. You can see it has like that stabbing tip and then that central fuller, and it is shaped as such. So this is what was used by the Cossack clans in the 1600s. So not this one specifically. This is a modern reproduction. And then later Russian swords, the Russian officer swords, were based on that blade geometry. So that was one of the things. Cast Siberia. This is from Cast Siberia. Basically, it's a Hanwei. They're out of them now. So yeah, Kingfisher got the last one that we'll have until they restock. Let's see. Hey, I saw the antique Nihonto Kinoto late Edo katana. Is it possible to review that right now? And is there a reason why it is $4,000? So yes, I happen to have that here. This is the Kinoto. And it's $4,000 because it is a big sword. And it is an antique. Most antique swords you're looking at least, if you don't have papers for them, $1,500 to $2,000. Actually, a katana you're looking at about $2,000 some dollars. And this one, it's long, extra long, and wide, and fairly straight. So these were popularized during the late Edo period, what they call the Bakumatsu. This is when Japan is going through this transition, when the West has finally forced its way into Japan, and they are going through social upheaval. But if I put this on my center line, you can see that it actually, it's not exactly straight, but it has a very shallow curve. And this was because people were starting to use shinai to spar with. And so you had swordsmen, they wanted real swords, shinken, that were similar to their shinai. So they were going for more straight swords. So that's a pretty cool one here. They're also very big. So if you look here, that tsuba, I don't think you get the scale of just how big this tsuba is. So I'm going to compare it. This is a modern day sword, and you can see that the tsuba is bigger. It's probably a good 10%, 10 to 15, 20% bigger than the modern day tsuba. So everything about a kinoto is big. The kinoto are they're very big buff swords, and also they're very thick as well. I can't remember what the thickness of this sword is, but I do have a caliper measure here, and we can see. I do believe this is 0.8 centimeters. Let's see, 0.8 millimeters. Let's put the calipers on. So this one is a full, that can't be right. Oh, it must have slipped at the last second. So this one is almost 9 millimeters wide, or thick, 9 millimeters thick. So that is one of the things about the kinoto, is they tend to be very big buff blades. For those of you just joining in, this is a late Edo period, about 150, 170-year-old sword that was favored by these partisan samurai who supported the emperor over the shogun. Matthew Jansen is looking for a Cossack sword still. What is the gold katana behind me? That is the gold plum. That is our super budget sword for $70. It also works well. We have cut tatami mats and we have cut bamboo with it. Gekiken, not kendo. Let's see. How did ancient swordsmiths make mekugi holes without proper power drills? I actually don't know. I've pondered that question, and I'm sure it's something I could ask somebody. But yeah, I couldn't answer that question. There were diptids and filed out. Okay. So listen to Scott. Scott's been practicing. Scott Takahashi's been doing Japanese martial arts, traditional martial arts for like 40 years. So I trust his when he says that. I was actually wondering about that too. I was like, how do they do it without like a drill press? Because that's how we drill into our nakogo, is using a drill press when we want to mount them. So This one has what's akitaware. This is where a forging flaw. It doesn't make the blade any weaker. Well, I mean, I guess it does, but not significantly. But these are more, once again, an antique kinoto. By the way, if you're really interested in it, it is on sale for 10% off this weekend. I think we're selling it for $37.50, so that would put it around $3,400, or maybe $3,450 in that area. So it is just a big buff sword. I'm really big fan of kinoto, as in with a punch. Okay. The other thing we have is the Satsuma swords. So this is after the emperor is restored. There were samurai. They basically started to not suppress the samurai, but they basically took away the samurai's class privileges, and some of the samurai were not too happy about that, which ended in the Satsuma Rebellion. And at the time of the Satsuma Rebellion, they also tended to they took swords and they tended to put them in fairly not inexpensive fittings that they could put together really quickly. So this one is, that last one was a 29.5 inches, I believe, is Nagasa. This one is actually 30 inches, and it has a okisaki. Also has a relatively straight blade. Not exactly straight, but relatively straight. I have my own kinoto, which is like even bigger. I have a ginormous kinoto here, and I am a big fan of it. All right, well, any questions or anything people want to see? Always happy to talk about swords or how to choose swords. Visit our website, rvakatana.com. Also, our Discord, discord.gg/RVA Katana. Scott Takahashi is the mastermind behind that. But show off your swords. We're always happy to see people's swords. We don't care if you get it from us or somebody else. We just love swords. As I like to say, swords are cool, even if sword people are not. With so many swords, your maintenance must be fun. Being here in climate control, there isn't a lot of maintenance. I just oiled all my Nihonto the other day, but I'm probably going to now that I have choji oil, I'm probably going to do it again because I like the smell of choji oil. So I don't take them out of their scabbards that often. And since we're in climate control, some of these swords I probably haven't oiled for 6 months and they look fine. So, yeah. And in the shop, we have about 500, 600, actually we have 500 swords on the floor, and we just take turns cleaning them off. Sometimes we might miss them because you'll see there's actually 2 swords that have fingerprints on them. Let's see. 3-in-1 oil does a trick on my collection. Yep, 3-in-1. Yeah, I just, I got an economy size from Namikawa Hebe. This is the choji oil from Namikawa Hebe, and even in this packaging, you can smell that clove. I love it. I could just sniff this all day and get high off it. Do you recommend any tantos? Depends. Yeah, tanto are cool. I think that really depends on what you're looking for and what you plan on doing with it. Tanto are handy, and I think they are cool. We have a bunch of very cool looking ones with Hitatsura Hamon and other interesting Hamon. I don't have any here. Well, I do have. Let me show you one here. This is one of my favorite swords, my favorite tanto, because I love dragonflies. It has dragonfly on the saya. And check out that unakubi blade here. The blade is gorgeous. I'm just a total whore for triangle bohi termination. So when I see one of these, I will spread my wallet flaps. So this is the one of the tanto, one of our prettier tanto. I also have an antique one here. This is an antique Osaka tanto here. I think these are the only tanto I have on hand. But check that guy out. Mean tip. This is the yokote line here. So half of the blade is the stabbing tip. Let's see. Clove oil makes my fingers numb. Interesting. I live in a very dry climate. Would that affect the fit of the saya? Yes. Ian, you definitely, in dry climates, the wood tends to shrink and the fit tends to get tighter. Let's see. It also depends on where it was made, fit and finish from the start. Also, how much you use your sword. Yeah, all that will play a role in your sword, in the fit and finish, the fit of your saya. what you're looking for, ideally, is a saya that won't rattle and that there's a really good fit. I'm actually really impressed. I'm going to show you here. This is a $125 sword we sell. It's 1060 steel, but let's see. I'm going to hold it down and not a lot of rattle for $125. And then you hold it upside down, not a lot of rattle. It's not coming out. It's a pretty good fit, but a little pressure with your thumb and it loosens. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed that that some of our swords are actually doing that. Of course, this can change with humidity. Like once we get hot air coming in for the winter, everything's going to start tightening up. So especially if you have hardwood swords, like hardwood scabbards on Chinese swords, you want to oil those down. Oh, let me show you something I just got in today. I got like a metal mikugi a metal mikugi. And I don't know if you can see the detail on it, but it has a chrysanthemum crest on it. So I got this from a guy in China that Chad introduced me to. And so I got a mikugi because this one had the mikugi was had a thumbtack on it. It was really ghetto. This is one of my favorite touchy fittings that I have. It is absolutely enormous. So if you look at me, I'm a 6 foot tall person. This tsuba here, compared to the size of my hand, that just gives you an idea of how big this thing is. So let's see. I saw you guys have replica swords from anime and games, and I was wondering if you can review Ghost of Tsushima katana. We have two kinds of those, and one of them, I don't have them here, they're at the shop, and actually we're out of the one with the natural hamon on it. The one with the alloys looks a little bit more like the game. It has a black guard, and basically same thing. Anytime you have a clay temper line, the sword is going to be less durable. It'll just have a harder edge. And so aesthetically, I find that the clay temper one is much prettier, especially because it has real brass fittings. But yeah, they're more or less otherwise the same. We've cut with the higher end one. It cut nice to the T10. Yeah, Scott says that correctly. We cut with the Ghost of Tsushima T10, and it just flew through mats. It was just. If you go to our TikTok account, Pop Swords, we actually, one of our customers who bought it, he took Scott's cutting class and he used it and went through the mats really easily. What is the main reason to go from a $100 $200 sword to a $300 to $600, and why jump to a $500 sword? Well, $100 to $200, you're not necessarily going to get great fit and finish. I think it's fine for your average person, but once you get to above $200, you really want to see tight wrap, so the wrap isn't going to be shifting very much, better transitions on the ska, better blades. So in the $100 to $200 range, you can get like spring steel, which is it's a good start. You can get T10 clay tempered blades for maybe $200 or so, maybe $150 to $200. But once you get above $200, you're starting to get into better fit and finish and better blades. And that also depends on where you're looking too. So you can sometimes actually go on eBay and find some pretty good deals for really good swords for like $200. But you would have to know where to look. So I'm lucky because I have or I shouldn't say lucky, I work my ass off at it. I've met a lot of people who tell me the ins and outs, like who's selling on eBay and who to trust and who not to trust. This is sort of a weird question, but how securely does the saya in an obi? It seems like it's hanging fairly loose and would fall out. Like I say, weird question. Not a weird question at all. It really depends on how tight your obi is, and you really want it fairly secure because you don't want it slipping out. But the kurigata will help keep it from slipping out a little bit. And then if your obi is so loose that it is slipping out, you just got to retighten your obi. Let's see. Also depends on collector, backyard cutter, practitioner, sword for display only. Yeah, Tengu brings up a really good point. So the swords that we sell in the $300 to $500 range, they usually have really pretty hamon. They're more display swords that could be used if you need to, but you're not going to use them on a daily basis. So that's what you're looking for. That's a really good point, John. That is Tengu 190. Can you review one of your favorite European swords? Well, I don't know a whole lot about them. I cut with the Cloudhammer SX105V sword, and it cut really nicely. But I was using a katana style cut, so I'm really not sure what to say about it. Except they are very nicely balanced. The Cloudhammers. Here's the SX105V, and the S5 will be the same. They have the exact same geometry, but the balance is really nice. It's a very nimble sword. I feel like I could use this one-handed if I wanted to. So that's what can I say? I don't practice it. Mountain Stream Swordman would be a better person to talk to about it. But I feel it has a really nice balance to it. And that's all I can really say. So since not practicing it, I couldn't tell you a whole lot. Let's see. A kako obi is a proper sword belt, which will have at least 2 layers holding it plus the cords on the hakama, says Scott. Yeah, Scott taught me how to tie a hakama or an obi. I can't say I do it very well, but listen to him. And also, John Tengu 190, you're talking about 2 experienced practitioners there. Also depends on, yeah, let's see. Ha, wakarimashita. Oh, hai, wakarimashita. Yeah. Mm. Okay. I've been going on for 40 minutes, so I'm probably going to shut this down. But I'm hoping everyone's having an amazing Thanksgiving weekend. And yeah, we'll be back on probably Monday night. I'll come in and live stream from the shop. So I can show a lot more than I have here. Ian Wolf, if you're looking for a kako obe, check Kotaro. They are slightly wide at 4 inch versus the normal 3.25 to 3.5 inches. All right. Oh yeah, Tengu, come pick up your swords. All right, see you guys later. I think I'm hitting the wrong button. I'm doing this if it was TikTok.